better a few months back.
November. Yeah.
It
It's November. Yeah.
she presented to the Rotary Club in the office, and it sounded fascinating. And I was like, "You need to come and talk to us at the Concussion Resource Center." So I'm going to read her bio and memorize all this. So knowing that she had a career dedicated to helping others, Dr. Wyant completed her master's degree in social work. In 2004, became a licensed master social worker, and she gained experience working in skilled nursing facilities and providing psychotherapy on an outpatient basis in behavioral health, or outpatient behavioral health. And she enjoyed that work until she came across, I'm kind of oddly here. She was looking for some assistance with her son who had ADHD and just wasn't finding it with the practitioners, doctors and stuff that she was seeing, and found chiropractic work and some of the other extensions of that, found it to be very helpful. And so she went back to school and got her degree in chiropractic in 2019. As an honors graduate of the Northeast College of Health Science and Seneca Falls, New York. So
Seneca Falls, yep.
So she's been, from there, she's actually learned techniques in applied kinesiology, activator, and neurolink related, captured her interest, and she's done a lot of additional training in lots of areas. I'm not sure if you want to talk about all those areas, but
I can do a little bit of that.
I find like nutrition response testing to be really interesting and things like that too. So she's now living here in Bozeman with her husband and 2 sons, and does a lot of volunteer work with Rotary. Whenever I'm doing things, she tends to be there these days. So fishing day, getting books, and things like that. So I don't know what to free up my time, find time to do all that as well. So with further ado, I'll let you go ahead and get started. It's a lot more interesting than Dr. Go through the whole thing. Okay, I'll let you go.
Great. So yeah, I firmly dove down the rabbit hole with my son because I wasn't really finding help for him. I started with diet, and back in the day, even dietitians were telling me none of that is going to help your son. Don't take away artificial colors. Don't take away. That was the advice that I got from a dietitian, and so I disregarded what they told me, and I started researching on my own. And then I never came out of the rabbit hole. I have stayed there the whole time. And then I actually went back to school because I'm like, I love this so much. And I found this so helpful for my son that social work was phenomenal and it was very rewarding, but I want to do more with my hands. I want to get hands-on and really be able to help people right in front of me. And so I went back to school as an adult with 2 kids and a husband who was active duty military. So yeah, that was fun. But it was worth it because now I have some really cool tools and techniques that not a lot of other people are doing, especially as chiropractic. So I'm not just a chiropractor. I don't just adjust people. Actually, that's like a fraction of what I do. So today I was going to talk about the nervous system because one of the techniques I do is called Neuro Emotional Technique. And it's all about how your body can hold on to trauma and it can manifest physically. It can give you all sorts of symptoms. So I don't know how much science we want in this. So I'll start going down that path, and if everyone's like, yeah, go on, we'll speed through it. So how do we respond to stress? So the 2 stress pathways, we have an acute and a chronic stress response. So here we get down the sciencey path. The acute stress pathway is the sympathy adrenal medulla pathway. So this is someone pulls out in front of you, right, in a car. Oh my goodness, you have enhanced reflexes because your body allows you to do that. You've got chemical processes that happen in your body that make your muscles respond. It is not the time to digest food. It is not the time to sleep All of those functions are in the background. Your body is like, no, respond to this stress. And then after a couple of minutes, when your brain says, okay, it's okay, we can calm down, your body should return to normal. So that's the acute, immediate danger stress pathway. Then we have the chronic stress pathway, which is a different pathway. This is the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal pathway, and there are more brain structures that are involved with this, but those are the biggies. This is chronic stress, and I think we all live in chronic stress right now. So I'm not going to go over all the different. Do you want to know the cortical releasing factor and all of that? Do you guys want me to go over that or no? Yes? Okay, so we'll do it. And actually there's more to this. So there's a stressor, and then the hypothalamus kind of plays a big role. So the hypothalamus plays a role in both stress pathways, actually. It lets you know, hey, is this immediate danger or is this chronic stress? So it's kind of like the mediator. Which reaction do I need? Do I need the, oh my goodness, run from a tiger reaction? Or is this, I've got a deadline by the end of the week that I'm not meeting, or I've got all of these things that I have to do. So it makes that determination, and it turns on different organs. It releases different hormones based on what it interprets. So that hypothalamus is really present in both pathways. So with the chronic stress pathway, it goes down to the pituitary gland, says, okay, activate, goes down to the adrenals, says, okay, activate. Then what do they start doing? Cortisol. They start pumping out cortisol. Everyone hears that as a bad thing, right? Well, that goes back and can trigger the hippocampus. The hippocampus then talks to the hypothalamus and says, okay, we're done, we've got enough cortisol. That would be in a healthy reaction. That doesn't always happen. So sometimes we get stuck in this chronic stress pathway, and these endocrine hormones, peptides, neuropeptides just start pumping, and we get these downstream effects of chronic stress, which can lead to inflammation. They can lead to all sorts of indigestion. They can lead to, like I said, physical pain. So not a great pathway to be stuck in. So how can this relate to concussion? All right, think about, has everyone had a concussion in here or worked with people with concussion? So if you think about how it happened, was it nice, smooth, easy go? Probably not, right? There was probably some sort of trauma. There was probably some sort of stressor that surrounded it. And then has anything about your life changed since you were concussed? Everything. Yeah. Challenges with daily tasks, possibly. Memory impairment, possibly. Changes in relationships, possibly. Yeah. So that's where many stressful events of today can subconsciously remind us of unresolved past traumatic events. So this is where, depending on what happened with your concussion, let's say it was a car accident, okay? So this is where seeing a car out of the corner of your eye could trigger a physiologic response. That's what we would call a neuro emotional complex. So if you see that car coming out of the side of your peripheral vision, and all of a sudden your heart starts racing, that's a physiologic response to a past trigger. The car's not necessarily coming at you. It's not necessarily going to cause an accident, but your body is responding like it is. And we get stuck in those pathways sometimes. So that's triggering all of those stress hormones. That's getting everything to act as if you're in that dangerous situation right now, because your body doesn't know if it was happening in the past or if it's happening right now when it's producing those chemicals. Your limbic brain, which is the emotional part of your brain, time doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it happened yesterday, 10 years ago. You're reliving it right now. It's happening right now, which is fascinating to me. So this can lead, I kind of already said that. Oh, thank you. So what is NET? So this is Neuro Emotional Technique. This is the technique that really kind of helps to find that hidden stress and trauma that your body holds on to. So I'm going to read it because it's a lot of words, but NET is a mind-body technique that uses a methodology of finding and removing neurological imbalances related to the physiology, body, of unresolved stress patterns. So that's basically releasing stored trauma and stress. We call those unresolved stress patterns neuro emotional complexes, or NECs. So if I say NEC, that's what I'm talking about. It's basically a trigger in our body that causes an emotional or a physiologic response. And that can be visual, it could be auditory, it could be a feeling, it could be a memory, it could be a smell. You name it, it could potentially trigger it. Licensed healthcare professionals can use this, and I have a list of different people: counselors, DCs, MDs, naturopathic doctors, therapists. They all have to use it within their scope of practice. Yeah, I've said that like 5 times. It helps us find and eliminate those conditioned emotional responses, which are the NECs. So now here's really cool part 2. So this is some of the research about NET. And if you want some of these studies, I have a couple of these studies over here. This one's really awesome. So this one, they looked at the effect on brain physiology with cancer patients with a traumatic stress symptom. So what they did is they took cancer patients and they had them relive the moment that they got their cancer diagnosis. They recorded it. So they had them say it into a voice recording. Then they put them in a functional MRI and scanned their brain, listening to the story of how they got their diagnosis. Oh, it was so cool. So let me go to the next page. So the top one, you can see the area of the brain that was active. That's before they had any treatment. So that's, I think, the parahippocampus, I believe, is what's active. So they did that before, and then they had between 4 to 6 sessions of NET, and then they stuck them back in the functional MRI, and they played it again, and they saw a decrease in the activity of that center of their brain, which is just, it's so nice to have objective measures that say there's an actual physiologic change that has happened after these treatments. So that one's really cool, and I actually have the abstract over here if you want that. That's just pointing out the same. And there's a ton more research that they're doing and that they've been doing. So the one foundation.org, if you're curious, they've got more. So we're keep doing more and more studies. It takes a long time for research to get published. It takes even longer for anybody to do anything with it. So, you know, some of this research we've had for 8 to 10 years. And the only people who seem to really care are the NET practitioners. So, but it's pretty amazing. We found the cerebellum is involved with a lot of emotional responses as well, which is really cool because we think about the cerebellum being involved with movement. And so to find that has, you know, an emotional piece as well is really cool. All right. So some backgrounds about NET, just to kind of give you an idea of what it is and why it works. So emotions are physiologically based. And so we know this because Candace Pert, has anybody heard of Candace Pert? Isn't she great? She's amazing. So in the 70s and the 80s, she actually found that she demonstrated that circulating neuropeptides, I want to say this right, are found in every cell in the human body. And those are the physiologic substrates of emotions. So back in the 70s and 80s, she proved this, which is just so cool. So thank you to her. And then the second one, Pavlov's dog. Has anyone heard of Pavlov's dog? So these are conditioned responses, right? You ring the bell, the dog salivates. We know it over and over again. We're just like the dog. We get conditioned to different responses. Let's see if I'm going to talk about it in here. Let's see. If I don't, I have a thing I want to say about it, but we'll see. Emotions and meridian systems. So this is used a lot in acupuncture. Emotions are correlated with different organs. And so we use acupuncture pulse points in NET frequently to help clear out different emotional responses. And it's a very powerful tool. And it's actually part of the stress reduction tool that I'm going to give you at the end of today. So, and it has a little bit of information on it as well. All right. And that's just a bigger list of it. So some of these things are pretty interesting. I find kidney bladder, which is fear, and paralyzed will all the time. I mean, probably 10 times today I found that on people. So it is a huge thing. We are living in fear right now. Yeah. Okay, repetition compulsion. So essentially, when we've been emotionally traumatized, we will not consciously seek to repeat that, which doesn't seem logical, but we do. We tend to go back because that's what we know. And all of these things have they have research behind them. If you want the studies, I'm happy to show those to you too. It's so cool. The role of memory and physiology. So when we remember a past stressful event, the body has a physiologic response to it. This is also really interesting because the parahippocampus, which is part of our chronic stress process, it's part of visual memory. So when we are visualizing what's happened in the past, it's active, and that's very much part of that chronic stress response. And so this is actually really important too. So all memory events are considered to be emotional reality, and they may or may not correspond with actual or historical reality. Now this, I think, is super, super important. So the story I'm going to tell you is kind of sad, kind of weird, but follow me on this one. Okay, so you're driving home from work. It's dark, and you see this black dog on the side of the road, and it's dead. It's on the side of the road. It's kind of far off, and you feel so bad, but you don't want to get out and do anything with it. Sorry, because it's dark. So you go home that night and you grieve that dog. It's so sad. So you decide tomorrow when I go drive back past, I'm going to do something with that dog. Woo. So when you come back the next day, you're driving by it and you realize, whoa, okay, can you still hear me? Do I need to speak up a little bit? Maybe, because it's pretty loud. Whoa, that helps. Wow. Okay, black dog. So all night you've grieved that dog on the side of the road. You've grieved the loss of that dog. You didn't know that dog, but it was so sad, so heartbreaking. The next day, when you're driving back, you go over to get the dog, and you find it's not a dog. It is a black trash bag. So there was never a dead dog. But all last night, you were grieving the loss of that dog. Your emotional reality is what matters, not actual reality. There may or may not be truth to it. What it doesn't really matter if what you believe happened. Yes. What matters more is how your body reacts to your truth. So that's a very, very important key piece of this.
Where does the amygdala in the vagus?
I haven't seen a ton with the vagus nerve with NET, but I find it a lot with regulating the autonomic nervous system. So with some of the other techniques I do, a lot of times the vagus nerve is overactive. So, but the amygdala, that's like the emotional center of our brain. So that's very, very present, and it's also part of that chronic stress pathway as well. Let's see. So this is a fun one too. So we're going to talk about a lemon. So we're going to talk about getting our physiology involved with just a thought. So visualize a lemon. Everyone's got a lemon in their hand. Cut into it. Smell it. Nice and tart. All right. And now take a big bite. What's happening? Salivating. That is our conditioned response to a lemon. There's no lemons here, but we're salivating just by the mere thought of it. Yeah, that is how our body produces physiologic chemical reactions just by thought. So it's so amazing. This is why I geek out with this. So our body's stress response works in a similar way when we're triggered with unresolved memories. So we have a memory, we have that smell that reminds us of something. So I had one, there was a car accident that I witnessed, and it was pretty horrific, and we assisted with it, but there was sagebrush. And so for a few years, when I would smell sagebrush, it would put me right back in that situation. So, you know, I had to clear that. I had to be able to be okay around sagebrush. I like to ride four-wheelers, and there's some sagebrush around here, so I don't want to be triggered with that, but yeah. Okay, so then muscle testing is another dynamic of neuroemotional technique. Is anybody familiar with muscle testing? Yeah, most people are in here. Great. Okay. It accesses the physiology through the body. Initially, we try to get a strong muscle, so then we can see what inhibits it, or with a non-congruent statement or a body part. Sometimes we just have to touch a body part that has pain, and it'll show us whether or not there's something affecting the physiology. So it's kind of like an involuntary reflex. So it's just like when they tap your knee, that patellar reflex. The muscle test is the same, because you can't control it, right? Have you had a muscle test when you're trying so hard to not let that arm go weak? But sure enough, it goes down. And then semantic responses. So this is where it doesn't have to just be the smell, or it can be saying something like perfume. It can be the auditory. You could be afraid of the sight of a spider, or you could just say spider, and that could trigger a response. And then like cures like, and we have known this for a long time with the law of similars and Hahnemann and homeopathic remedies. So that's very much, we use this a lot with NET, and I have some remedies that we can spray in the mouth or in the air as well that can help with that. Okay, so I want to show everybody a stress reduction technique. So I'm going to clear these out. Do you want to hand this out for me? So this uses a lot of these same techniques that I've already been talking about. And tell your friends about this. Show anybody and everybody this technique, because I find it is so helpful. And the more people that know how to reduce their stress, the better, because we are a stressed society. I don't think I have anything closer. Okay, so here's how you do it. I'm just going to wait until everybody has one. So everybody go ahead and take your left hand, and you're just going to look at your palm. And you're going to take your right hand, and you're going to go around your wrist, just below this bone here. There you go. And then you're just going to put your palm on your forehead. And then you're going to take 3 deep breaths, and I want you to think about something that's stressful today. Maybe it's, did hail just hit my car? 3 deep breaths. And now you're going to switch hands. You're going to look at your right hand, and you're going to put your left hand around, just on that wrist, just below that thumb bone, and palm on your forehead, and take 3 deep breaths, thinking about whatever that stressor is. Beautiful. Wonderful. And that's the technique. It's so fast, and it is so easy, but let me explain why it's so powerful. So remember how I told you we use the acupuncture pulse points? You were doing those. So that's why you have to do both hands, because different hands represent different organs. Different organs have different emotions attached to them. So that's why you do both hands. Up here, we have the emotional points. That's why your palm goes on your forehead. And then you bring in your autonomic nervous system by taking those nice deep breaths, belly breaths if you can, diaphragmatic breathing if you can. And then mind-body connection. When you contact in your mind with an area that hurts, or you can think of a stressful situation, you can contact anything, really, anything. Person, situation, you might not even know, but you might want to have a better night's sleep. This is great to do while you're laying in bed trying to go to sleep. Yeah, it's a fantastic technique. And if you forget how to do it, on the top of that page, that firstaidstresstool.com, there is a video that you can watch. There's also the pictures on there. And I think it also talks a little bit, those colored up there, you can't really see it on here, talks about some of the emotions that are attached with some of those pulse points, which is interesting as well. So use that as often as you need it. If you're like, I'm not sure if I'm doing it right, do it anyway. It only takes a minute, so it's very quick. Just don't do it while you're driving. Other than that, it's a great tool. All right. And then if you are more interested in NET mind body, NET technique, you can go to this website. There's a lot of cool videos. Dr. Daniel Monti also has a lot of videos on YouTube. He is the lead researcher for all of our research for NET. He is amazing. He thinks on another level. He's very research oriented. So if you want a lot of like the technical language, he's a great one to watch. So, and then do you guys have any questions? Okay, EMDR is usually done, yeah, it's tapping. And I think it's similar. Now, I don't do EMDR, but counselors and therapists do. So I am not a counselor or therapist. That is not my role. So this is, honestly, I don't even need to know what the stressor is, which is kind of cool. And this is actually really good for like teenagers or kids, because sometimes kids can't put their words into, or their feelings into words. They can't express it. Or I'll have a teenager where mom is sitting right there and they don't want to say what's on their mind. They don't want to say what's bugging them. So the physiology will show if they think of it, which is very, very helpful. So as long as you've got it, you've got the thought here, your physiology will show me that yes, it's involved, or no, it's not. So, and I think EMDR is movement, right? Eye movement too. And this, your eyes are closed and you're just contacting with the meridians. But you got to keep your focus on whatever the feeling is, the thought is, or the area that hurts. But the really cool thing is while you're thinking on it, it will start getting fuzzy. It's harder to hold on to it. It's pretty powerful. So they call that extinction. So when you have a conditioned response, we want it to go extinct because it's not helping us. It's not useful anymore. So yeah, we're trying to, because Pavlov showed that with his dog. You can condition the dog to salivate. You can also extinguish that response by ringing the bell and never providing the food when you ring the bell. Eventually, the dog will stop having that response. So it can be done. It just takes some effort.
Yeah. So this would work for a child in dysregulation, like in the midst of a dysregulation of his.
It depends. It depends. That's really tricky. I have other techniques that I would probably use before I would go into this, because we definitely want to engage some of the prefrontal cortex, because you kind of need that for extinction, because we use all of the different parts of our brain to extinguish the response. Because if we're just, trying to survive, you're not going to logically think about it, so we kind of have to get out of that crisis management first before I feel like this would be as effective. So, but you also want to know what's causing that. Is there a stressor, like a chemical or a metal, or is there a food? Is there a scar? Is it, what's causing that dysregulation? So that's when I would probably jump into the other techniques.
Genetic memories.
Yeah, so that's really interesting too, because there's a lot of research coming out on epigenetics. And so, if genes can get turned on, can they get turned off? I think so. But, the research, we're still learning. So, but yeah. Sorry, I don't have a better answer. Yeah.
I'm curious what you would find the timeline is like for the acute stress, like the traumatic event stuff. How long is this going to take?
It depends. Yeah, I mean, that's the question everybody always asks me. And it is so individual. I've had a person that I've been working with for a year, but she's doing phenomenal. But it's because she chooses to come back and work on things each time, and she's older, and there's a lot of trauma there. But I have people that have come to me 4 or 5 times, and they're like, I'm good. So it really depends on what it is. The other part I find is willingness to work on it, because some people are pretty hesitant and there's a wall. And if you're not willing to bring up, because they're unpleasant emotions, they're unpleasant things, we don't want to feel them again. And I definitely understand that. But if you're not willing to go back there for that moment so we can extinguish it, we're not going to have luck. So that plays a big role.
Could you walk us through, if there is something like a typical evaluation in your office?
Okay. Well, depending on if everybody's open to it, I could do a demonstration. Is everybody okay with that? Whoever volunteers, what is said and done in this room, we might want to turn off the recording. It stays here because people will say, they'll talk about sensitive things, and we want to make sure they feel safe to do that. So if everyone's in agreement for that, I could do a quick demonstration. Takes a couple of minutes. Yeah? Okay.